Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today with our special guest, Michelle Norris, of course, our health and wealth experts here. So just wanted to say hello to everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your special day today to spend some time with us and really understand the idea. I think today's topic is going to be what's in your grocery cart. So a lot of you, we want to thank you actually from all the different firms. I think there's 3 different firms here on the webinar today. So we want to thank you all from the different firms you're part of. A lot of us kind of met each other with what's in your financial folder, if you will. And so this is kind of morphed into a Capital One commercial now. Now, what's in your grocery cart, right? So just wanted to say that. So just want to thank you all for joining us today. We have a special event today to help you become a better person, help you become a better life, always getting better, a better human being. This is from the health standpoint today. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Kathy.
Yeah, hi everybody. Kathy Johnson here from Freeze Financial Group up in Chippewa Falls. Excited to share Michelle's expertise on going to the grocery store, and we all know how daunting of a task that can be. And we have so many options to pick from, making sure that you can make the right choices to support your nutritional goals. So at this time, without further ado, I'd like to just on behalf of myself and our team here at Freeze Financial Group say welcome to our clients and take it off to Michelle Norris. And Michelle, again, is our health and wellness expert, and she comes to us as the director of the corporate wellness suite. And Michelle, kick it off.
Thank you guys so much for having me back. I love these presentations so much, and today's presentation is truly one of my favorites. It's actually quite new to the portfolio, but it was by request. So I do an in-person grocery store tour for our clients that are local, and then I have some clients that are 100% remote, similar to you guys. And so they asked if there was a way to do a virtual grocery store tour. Unfortunately, grocery stores will actually not let you film in the store. They're very big sticklers about that, and not that I found that out the hard way or anything. So we've designed a presentation that is as if we are all walking around the grocery store together. As I've mentioned before in the Power of the Fork webinar, grocery stores are pretty much all set up the same. So around the outside, you've got the coolers, the good stuff, if you will, and then we've got some of the junk in the middle, but of course there's aisle exceptions, which we'll talk about. So we're going to walk through as if we're all going through the grocery store together, and we're going to talk about how do you pick the best meat, how do you pick the best eggs, how do you pick the best vegetables, but also keeping in mind from the financial standpoint, how do we make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely and not just throwing dollars away for no reason? Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my slides. We're going to kick this off with 3 poll questions. So here's our virtual grocery store tour that we are ready to embark on. Hopefully you guys can see my slides. If you can't, just shout at me, okay? Or I can put it in the chat. So without further ado, let's hop right into our very first question. Little pop quiz to get you started. On your screen, I believe you should see a poll. All right, so how many items do you think the typical grocery store carries? 23,000, 39,500, or 120,000? Go ahead, and if you are able to, select what you think is the correct answer. It's kind of a funny thing to think about. How in the world are there 23,000 or 39,000 or 120,000 different foods? But you can guess that the processed food industry has really capitalized on our grocery stores, which will be a common theme throughout this. I'm not sure how I see the answers or what you guys have chosen. Oh, there we go. Okay, 4% of you say 23,000, 32% of you say 39,500, and 64% of you think there's 120,000. So everybody who chose B, 39,500, you are correct. Good job. So there are 39,500 items in the typical grocery store tour. That's a lot of items. There we go. All right, question number 2. Where do shoppers spend the majority of their money? A, produce, B, meat and eggs, and C, processed foods. Go ahead and give us a guess. You might pick B, meat and eggs, based on the recent egg price increase. That was a little wild. produce, meat and eggs, or processed foods? Give you a couple more seconds. Before this, I was actually at a presentation that I believe he's a group benefits broker that was giving, and he was talking about health insurance and fully insured versus fully self-funded, which it all goes over my head, but he was talking about how the health insurance companies are now getting access to your credit card purchases. And so if they see every day on the way home from work, you buy a pack of cigarettes and a case of Mountain Dew, somehow they're taking that into consideration. And I raised my hand and I said, well, are they taking into consideration that my grocery cart is full of meat and eggs and broccoli? Because if so, that's fine. And could I please have a decrease on my health insurance? Anyways, okay, here are the answers. We've got 8% of you think it's produce, 27% of you think it's meat and eggs, and 65% of you are correct with processed food. So the majority of Americans are spending their money on processed food, the majority of their money on processed foods. We're going to talk about what those are and what the harmful side effects of those are and how do we better spend our money. Question number 3. In 1960, Americans spent on average 17.5% of their income on food. What percent of our income do we spend on food today? And this is at the grocery store, not out in restaurants. 9.5%, same as 1960, 17.5% or 31%. How much of your income are you spending on food? All right, let's go ahead and see what people said. We've got 16% of you said 19.5, 28% of you said the same as 1960, 17.5, and 56% of you said 31%. So my 16% that said 9.5%, you are actually correct. So we are spending significantly less on groceries than we did in 1960. And why I point this out is because I think that we have just gotten into our minds that food needs to be cheap. We don't want to spend a lot of money on food, and we want our food to be as cheap as possible. Back in 1960, we were spending 17.5% of our income on food, and nobody was, of course, you were always looking to save money, but we have made food not a priority today. And food is one of the most important things that we can invest in. You guys are working with these financial advisors to make sure that you're financially set for later in life. But if you aren't investing in your health now, what does it matter that you have all that money for later in life when you're in a hospital hooked up to tubes, you're on a bunch of maintenance medications and can't fully enjoy the wealth that you've acquired? So I tell people all the time, make the investment on the front end. And that looks like investing in exercise, whether that's a gym or just going outside walking. Maybe it's a piece of gym equipment for your home. And then it's your food. Your food, we've talked about the power of the fork. Every time we eat, we have the opportunity to do something great for our body or to begin disease at a cellular level within our body. Okay, so it's okay, and I encourage you to spend a little bit more money, prioritize when you go to the grocery store, those food choices, okay? All right, so the main takeaways from today, this is what I want you to walk away with. 1, where should you spend the majority of your money at the grocery store, okay? 2, when you're buying produce, how do we make the best but most cost-effective choices? I get asked all the time, organic or not organic? Okay, what am I supposed to choose there? We're going to talk about how to make the best choices for your health and for your wallet all in one. 3, what are the high-quality brands to look for that are nationally known? So you guys should be able to find these no matter what grocery store you go in. 4, what should we look for when we buy meat, fish, and eggs? What does farm raised mean? What does wild caught mean? What is free range? What are the tricks that those marketing companies use to get you to buy their meat or think that you're buying healthy meat? And then 5, just some general reminders for reading nutrition labels when we're walking down the aisles. Okay. So real quick, I want to stop and talk about ultra processed food. So of those 39,500 items in the grocery store, 72% of the US food supply is ultra processed. So what does that mean? Ultra processed foods means they've been through the most changes from their original state. So depicted in the back of this is a Pringle. You guys probably recognize that, and maybe some barbecue chips there as well. That would be an ultra processed food. It is incredibly far from the original state of a potato. Okay, both of those products. Ultra product foods usually contain additives, preservatives, and other food substances extracted from foods. A lot of times they contain those additives and preservatives and dyes that the FDA allows in our food, but are actually illegal in other countries. The FDA is one of the most lax governing bodies when it comes to what they allow in our food in comparison to the rest of the world. They are incredibly lax. And whether you might know this or you might not, but 65% of the FDA's funding comes from the pharmaceutical industry. So when they're getting 65%, more than half of their funding from the pharmaceutical industry, who benefits from you being sick, do you think that it is in their best interest to make sure that you are getting the healthiest foods possible? I won't put my hat on, but you guys can, and you can run with that a little bit. So 65% of the funding for the FDA comes from pharma, and the FDA is very lax on the chemicals, dyes, and preservatives that they allow in our food, unfortunately. So we have to be the ones who are educated and decide whether or not certain foods come into our house. So hopefully you learn a little bit about that today. Here's some of the reasons why they're really bad for us. They contain those inflammatory oils. We're going to talk about soybean oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, very inflammatory. Okay, and they're high in omega-6s, and inflammation is about 80% of disease is rooted in inflammation, so we want to watch that. They're riddled with added sugar. Those processed foods would taste about like cardboard if we didn't have added sugar in there. They increase your risk of cancer, increase your risk of diabetes, increase your risk of heart disease. It is designed by scientists to make you crave it. So the Pringles company has scientists on staff to make sure that that food lights up the dopamine receptors in your brain that make you feel good so that you keep coming back for those Pringles. They also cause an increase in weight. And the reason that is because they block the signal that is supposed to go from your stomach to your brain to let you know that you're full. Okay, so same thing, they have scientists on staff. Think about when you guys eat steak. You can't eat steak endlessly. Okay, you can't eat steak, just, pounds and pounds of steak. Your body's gonna start sweating, you're gonna start rejecting that, you're full, you push the plate away, you're like, I can't do it. But think about a can of Pringles. Even the slogan says, once you pop the top, you can't stop. That's true. That's true because there's a signal that real whole foods give off that goes from your stomach to your brain that says, I'm full. Enough. That signal, when you're eating highly ultra processed foods like Pringles, it doesn't make it to your brain. They're designed to make sure that signal gets stopped. That's why you can have a bag of chips next to you and eat it endlessly and still not feel satisfied. We all know that feeling. We're like, why? How can I just eat and eat and eat? Because that signal's not making it to the brain. So that's why we have an increase in weight when we eat these foods consistently. All right, so what does this have to do with our virtual grocery tour? Number one, the rule is spend the majority of your money around the outside. Okay, so when you bring those groceries home, the majority of your groceries should go in the pantry. That's how you know you did it right. If you come home and the majority of your groceries go in the I think I just said that backwards. The majority of your groceries should go in the refrigerator. If you come home and the majority of your groceries go in the pantry, we spent our money in the wrong place. Okay? The majority of your groceries should come home and go in the fridge because that means we spent the majority of our money around the outside where those coolers are. All right, so let's start there. We walk in the grocery store and we're going to hit the perimeter first. Okay, so we're going to start with fruits and vegetables. We've got some raw nuts in that section as well, and then we'll make our way around. All right. So when we walk in and we're looking at that produce section, picture yourself, you're standing there in your local grocery store and you are standing in the middle of the produce section. You're looking at fruits and vegetables and probably some raw nuts. Okay, so as a general rule of thumb, fresh and vegetables and fruits are the most nutrient dense. Okay, not far behind that are frozen fruits and vegetables. Okay, so I know that's a different section, but if you are somebody that can't keep up eating your fruits and vegetables and you feel like you're always throwing them away because they're going bad, just buy frozen so you're not wasting your money. Okay, so that's a way to save a little bit of money. Sometimes they're not nearly as good. I will not touch a frozen Brussels sprout, but I love a fresh roasted Brussels sprout all day. So if I'm talking to you, maybe you have to go to the grocery store more than once a week. Hopefully you have time for that. Last would be canned. Those are the least nutrient dense. But if that's the only way you can get fresh fruits and vegetables, then let's do it. Okay, the only thing we need to look out for when we're buying canned fruits and vegetables is that the can lining needs to be BPA free. Okay, that's one of those chemicals. It's a known carcinogen. The lining of the can for a long time was lined with BPA. Okay, it's a chemical preservative. Very, I would say half or more cans have adopted the BPA free lining and they put a little label on the can. So if you're buying canned anything, make sure it says BPA free. Okay. All right, so here's that question, organic versus non-organic. And this is what I tell people all the time. I wrote an article about this. If you guys read the weekly articles that I send out, you might remember that I wrote about this not long ago. And what I'm very grateful for is the Environmental Working Group, the EWG. They actually, every year since 2004, they send out a list of what they call the Dirty Dozen. Okay, so they basically look every year at the top fruits and vegetables with the highest pesticide residues. Okay, and then they release that list. So they are letting you know, hey, if you don't want to buy everything organic, because we do understand it's expensive, here are the top 12 things that we recommend buying organic. Everything else, maybe has a lower pesticide residue. Okay, so I love that list. It helps me, helps guide me for me and my family. We're going to go through that list in just a second. They do say that 70% of non-organic fresh produce sold in the US contains residues of potentially harmful pesticides. That's another thing that's not well regulated in the United States, the pesticides. We spray our crops, our non-organic crops, with some pretty harmful stuff. And so keeping that in mind, how do we limit our exposure to that harmful stuff? And by going by the Environmental Working Group Dirty Dozen is one of the best ways to do that. So this is what I tell people. If you don't want to buy everything organic, which I totally understand, I don't even buy everything organic. Buy the top 12 things that the EWG recommends every year. And it changes every year, which I love. I love that they're constantly researching the highest pesticide residues. Okay, so for 2023, here's what we got. Strawberries, that's typically always on the list because think about how porous a strawberry is. Think about all the little grooves in a strawberry. Those pesticides get down in there and it's hard to even wash them out. Okay, so this year, here's what you should buy organic: strawberries, spinach, kale, collards, and mustard greens, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell and hot peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans. Okay, and you guys will have access to these slides. You don't have to write that down or memorize it real quick. But if you are able, that is highly what I recommend buying organic this year. And again, it changes every year. Okay, so maybe this year you print that out, you put it on the fridge, and you try and remember to buy those organic when possible, okay? All right, when we buy nuts, peanuts, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, macadamia nuts, the ideal, as far as nutrient density, way to buy our nuts is raw, okay? And that's not to say that salt is bad, but usually when they salt nuts, maybe it's salted peanuts, they have to use some sort of oil to get the salt to stick to the nut. Okay, and a lot of times they use one of those inflammatory oils I mentioned previously. So it might be soybean, canola, peanut, or corn oil are the most common ones. So when we buy nuts, we want to buy the raw kind. Okay, and then you can salt them yourself. Salt is not bad, especially when you're eating a whole foods based diet. Think about if you're eating a diet that is eggs, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs, meat, beans. None of those things, if you're buying the whole raw version of those, they don't have any salt in them. And sodium is a very important electrolyte for the body. It helps us hold on to water, helps us stay hydrated, has a very important function in the body. So if we salt our food or if we salt our nuts and we're eating a healthy diet, that's absolutely okay. There is an upper limit to salt. And if we're eating a diet that's mostly processed foods, think back to that picture with the Pringles and the barbecue chips in the background, and if we're eating out a lot, if we're eating a lot of things that come out of a bag or a box, all those things are very high in sodium. And so that's how we get to this place where salt becomes a problem. Right? But again, if you're eating a whole foods based diet, you can salt your food and do not think that you are causing any harm to your body. All right. So buy raw nuts, salt them yourself. There, you can buy raw nuts in the produce section, but the cheapest place to buy them is actually the baking aisle. So that's one of those aisle exceptions. If you go down the baking aisle and they have the nuts for baking, they're cheaper than if you buy them in the produce section. Okay. All right, you're standing there. We're making our way around the grocery store. You're looking at the cooler of meat. It is overwhelming. There's grass-fed, there's grass-finished, there's vegetarian-fed. I mean, they use all sorts of marketing labels, right, to get your attention. Here's what we want to look for. First things first, we want to look for 100% grass fed. All right, they're going to dupe you. You're going to see 100% grass finished. Let me tell you the difference. And a cow that is 100% grass fed has lived a life in a pasture, and its whole life it's been able to feed and roam around on grass. Okay, that's a cow's natural diet, grass. All right, 100% grass finished means that most of that cow's life it was in a feedlot, fed corn or soy. All right, trying to get it as fat as possible. A couple of days before they slaughtered it, they let it out to the pasture. It grazed on a couple blades of grass, and then they slaughtered it. So that's how they call it 100% grass finished. It was finished off before it was killed for a couple days, it had a couple blades of grass. Don't fall for it. You want 100% grass fed. Another way to do the test is you want something that's a little bit more purple, okay, with it fat with a yellowed colored tint. So if you're buying a steak, you want something that looks a little more purple, less red, okay, a little more purple with a yellow colored fat versus that white. Okay, so that's two good tests there. Got a couple questions in the Q&A. Let me see. I'm told that bean oils are good for you, but should we stick to just avocado, coconut, and ghee only? But oils are not good. Thoughts? Bean oils. Whoever this is, can you put in the Q&A what bean oil, like soybean maybe, is maybe what you meant. So I'm talking about nut oils are bad for you. So like walnut oil, macadamia nut oil, those are fine. Yeah, coconut oil is fine. What other nut oils would you be referring to? Yeah, those are okay. So the ones that we want to avoid would be the processed ones. So soybean, corn, vegetable. What else did I say? Soybean, corn, vegetable, peanut. Peanut is one of the ones that's bad. So that, even though peanut is a legume, okay. So those are the ones we want to look out for and try and avoid. Sunflower, safflower, those are very inflammatory. So avocado, coconut oil, ghee, butter are the good ones. All right. All right, let's keep going. Let's say we're standing there looking at the chicken. All right, so let's talk about the two different labels we might see on chicken. We might see free range, we might see pasture raised. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find at your local grocery store pasture raised chicken. The best you're probably going to find is free range. But look at the difference between their lives, and this is crazy. So a free range, to have that free range label put on your chicken breasts or chicken thighs or whatever it might be, the hens they have to receive a minimum of 2 square feet of pasture for themselves. 2 square feet, that's all they need, and you can call them free range. How about that? I thought for a long time buying free range, I'm dreaming of this chicken that's been wandering around a big field eating its natural diet. And here I was totally wrong. And it's only 2 square feet. That's probably as big as the desk, smaller than the desk that your computer's sitting on right now. Yep, and that's a free range hen. Versus a pasture raised hen, they have to receive a minimum of 108 square feet of pasture for themselves. Okay, so a huge difference there. I want to remind you that the quality of your meat, the nutrients that you're getting from that meat, is only as good as the life that the animal had before it was slaughtered. A lot of times we don't make that link. We think, oh, all meat is the same, all chicken is the same, all beef is the same. It's not true. Okay, we can go as far back as the soil. So the soil, like thinking about your plant. So if your Brussels sprouts were grown in poor quality soil, the nutrient density of that Brussels sprout is going to be less than a Brussels sprout that was grown in high quality soil. That's why they used to do crop rotation back in the day. So when you grow a crop in soil, it pulls a lot of the nutrients out of the soil. I'm just totally going rogue here, but hang with me. Okay, so when you grow a crop in soil, it depletes the soil of a lot of nutrients. So the farmers knew that, and they would divide their fields up into 4. And every 4 years, they would farm that quarter of the field. Okay, so it would give that quarter of the field 3 years to regenerate and get the nutrients back in the soil so that they were producing high quality crops. Well, that's not very lucrative because you have a field sitting there 3/4 empty. So that's when genetic modification of certain fruits and vegetables started happening so that they could grow crops in the whole field in poor quality soil every year. Okay, so the nutrient density of our fruits and vegetables started to go down because the quality of the soil started to go down. That's where the supplement industry comes in. So some doctors will tell you you don't need supplements at all if you just eat a good quality, good healthy diet. Well, even if you're eating the best quality diet you can possibly find, the quality of our fruits and vegetables are not what they used to be, unfortunately, unless you are churning your soil yourself and you're doing the crop rotation and you're growing your own stuff. It's really hard to guarantee that the nutrient density of your fruits and vegetables is the same as what it was 100 years ago. All right, so talking about meat now, the quality of the meat is only as good as the life of that animal. So if that animal was fed an unnatural diet, it was given hormones to make it big and fat, it wasn't allowed to go out in the sunshine and walk around and exercise, the quality of that meat is not going to give you as much nutrients compared to a hen that was allowed to walk around in 100 square feet of pasture, had a natural diet for themselves, and wasn't fed any sort of unnatural soybean, corn, something to make it extra fat. Okay, so a lot of times they'll put vegetarian fed, and you think, oh, okay, well that's really healthy. It was vegetarian fed. Well, guys, soybeans and corn are vegetables, so they can put that on there. It's not a natural diet to a cow or to a hen, but you think you're doing something good for your body. I was duped by it for many, many years. But when you see that vegetarian fed, it doesn't mean anything. It just means they fed them most likely soybeans and corn to make them nice and fat. I'll tell you a funny story. So I was really trying to get my nutrition under, wrangled in when I was a freshman in college. I told you guys that's when I started having trouble with my back, and my strength and conditioning coach, he was really adamant about changing my nutrition so I could get the inflammatory foods out of there to lower the inflammation in my body to help my back feel better. And I came in and I was like, okay, Jonas, this is what I had for lunch. I was so proud of myself. I had chicken, broccoli, and corn. And he was like, Michelle, actually, he didn't know my first name was Michelle. He called me Mudge. That was my maiden last name. He said, Mudge, you know what they feed to cows to make them fat? Corn. And I thought I had done so good. And he literally just popped my balloon and I was so deflated. But then doing all this research and getting into it, I really figured out that he was correct. And that is what they feed to cows to make it fat. And that is vegetarian fed. So don't fall for it. All right. So the ideal choice of eggs and chicken, I really took a long time on the sled. I'm sorry. Thanks for hanging with me, guys. Would be pasture raised organic chicken and eggs. It's very difficult to find organic pasture raised chicken at your local grocery store. You might have to go to a local butcher to find that, or maybe a small mom and pop type shop. If that's not near you, free range would be the next best thing. Okay. Most grocery stores are now carrying pasture raised eggs. All right. So try and buy those if you are able. You'll notice that the egg yolk is bright orange compared to a pale yellow. That's a good quality egg. That's a good quality chicken that had a nice life or is having a nice life. All right, so now we are in the fish section. For all my fish eaters, we've got wild caught versus farm raised. And I totally understand why they do farm raised chicken, all right? Not farm raised chicken, farm raised fish. They're trying to make fish more readily available at a better price. The nutrient density isn't quite there, but if that's what works for your pocketbook, and if that's all you have access to, fish is a great source of healthy protein, great source of healthy fat. I would say don't not buy it because farm raised is all you have access to. Okay, you can see the difference there. Wild caught is just fish caught from their natural habitat versus farm raised is they are intentionally raising fish, whether in a pen within a lake, an ocean, river, or in an artificial tank. Okay, it's a little bit lower in the omega-3s. So omega-3s are really good quality, healthy fats that are natural anti-inflammatories. Okay, so wild caught fish have higher levels of omega-3s. If you're not a big fish eater in general, I highly, highly, highly recommend supplementing with a good omega-3. Okay, if you don't have a good one in mind or don't know where to start, just let me know and I can recommend a good fish oil for you. It's a really good natural anti-inflammatory, good for our brain, good for our heart health. All right. Let's keep going. All right, now you're looking at the huge wall of dairy products. This is a very overwhelming wall these days. There are hundreds of options to choose from, and here are a few things when you're picking your yogurt to think about. Okay, first we want to watch out for the added sugar. If anybody's ever had dairy that doesn't have added sugar or any kind of sweetener, you know that it is pretty bitter. And the dairy companies know it's pretty bitter. And so, because they want your money, they want you to keep coming back, they want you to love their product, they dump in added sugar. Okay, so remember, we've got a new nutrition label based back in 2020. We got that new nutrition label, and the dairy companies have to tell you how many grams of added sugar they dumped in to make that product taste better. Okay, so my Yoplait depicted here, it's got 13 grams of added sugar. So of the total sugar, 19 grams, 13 of those are added. Remember, the World Health Organization recommends a max of 25 grams of added sugar per day. Right? So that's about half your sugar for the entire day in one serving of that Yoplait yogurt. Another thing that they're doing now is they won't use real sugar, they'll use an artificial sweetener. A really common one that they're using now is called sucralose. That's the sciencey word for Splenda. It's toxic to your gut and your brain, and it's something that we really want to minimize our exposure to. Okay, so if it says includes 0 grams of added sugar but still tastes sweet, we need to be wondering, how in the world are they making this sweet? If they're using something like stevia or monk fruit, that's absolutely okay. Those are natural sweeteners. They have very little impact on your blood sugar. Okay, but if they're using sucralose, we want to look at that ingredient list and see if they're using sucralose, then that's a product we don't want to bring home. Okay, a lot of yogurts are promoting that they are low fat or no fat. Okay, we need to remember that fat is good. All right, we demonize fat for a really long time. Fat from dairy products, fat from avocados, fat from nuts, fat from nut butter, fat from grass-fed red beef, red meat are all good sources of healthy fat. Okay, so buy the full fat if you have access to it. Okay, and then if you don't tolerate dairy well, quit forcing it. I hear people all the time. I work one-on-one with people, and I'll say, how do you tolerate dairy? Oh, it hurts my stomach, but I love cheese, so I eat it anyways. Okay, well, if it hurts your stomach, that's your body telling you, I don't love this. This is causing harm on the inside. So if you don't tolerate dairy well, I really encourage you to minimize your dairy exposure. And thankfully today, to be dairy-free, it's very easy. They have wonderful dairy alternatives when it comes to yogurt, when it comes to cheese, when it comes to milk. Okay, so when we're picking a yogurt product and we're trying to pick one that's dairy-free, opt for a plain, unsweetened alternatives. That might be almond, it might be oat, cashew, or coconut. Lots of different options out there. Just make sure you're getting unsweetened. And that doesn't mean you can't bring it home and put a little honey and added fruit in there to make it sweeter. Just start with the unsweetened base and then you can doctor it up yourself. Okay? Here's a couple that I love so much. The Chobani, this is the whole milk, plain Greek yogurt, no added sugar. Bring it home, put some Purely Elizabeth granola in it. That makes for a great snack or a great breakfast. The Oikos 000, I do recommend this one a lot because it has stevia in it. So it's sweetened with stevia. It tastes pretty good. They do pull all the fat out. So I don't love that about it, but otherwise it's a great choice, good source of protein. Here's some non-dairy options for you. This is the So Delicious Coconut Unsweetened. You can buy it in the big container. The Silk Unsweetened Almond Milk Yogurt. Trader Joe's, this is what my son eats. He eats the organic creamy cashew yogurt. He loves it. I put peanut butter and berries in it, and that's his morning snack every day. And then we've got the Chobani Zero Sugar. That one is sweetened with stevia as well. So those are some good options for you. Again, you guys will have access to these slides. Oh, too good. That only has 2 grams of sugar in it, which I love. Okay. All right, cheese. Again, we're standing there. We're continuing our circle around the outside of the grocery store. We're standing in front of the wall of cheese, and there's so many choices, just like with the yogurt. So first things first, read the ingredients of your cheese. We are, again, the FDA is very lax on what they allow in our cheese. The only ingredients in cheese should be milk, enzymes, cultures, and salt. Okay? A lot of these cheeses, especially the shredded cheese, have what's called cellulose in it. It's actually an anti-caking agent made from cotton and wood pulp. Unless you are a big fan of consuming cotton and wood pulp, I would recommend leaving it on the shelf if it has cellulose in it. Okay, that's one of those chemicals that in a lot of other countries they don't allow in their food. Another thing, buy full fat. Same thing with the yogurt as with the cheese. Buy the full fat version. There's a lot more K2 and vitamin D in there. Kraft singles. For anybody that's buying Kraft singles, you know what I'm talking about, the individually packaged singles of, you can't even call them cheese. You want to know why? So the reason they're called Kraft singles and not Kraft cheese slices is because to be called cheese, you have to be at least 51% cheese. And that product has to be at least 51% cheese, and Kraft singles are not. So that's why they have to call them Kraft singles and not Kraft cheese. So what the other ingredients are in Kraft singles, I'm not quite sure, but it's not even 51% cheese, so no more of that. The ideal way to consume your cheese, again, if you tolerate dairy, would be to buy the block cheese and slice or shred it yourself. Okay, none of those anti-caking agents make their way into block cheese for the most part, double check. Okay, and then if you don't tolerate dairy, go for something that's non-soy based cheese or goat or sheep cheese. So a lot of people can't tolerate cheese that comes from cows, from cow milk, but you can tolerate goat or sheep cheese, okay. So experiment with that, and if you can't tolerate any of them, they have almond options, they have cashew options. Just try and avoid the soy-based cheese. Processed soy is a phytoestrogen, meaning it mimics estrogen in our body and can raise our estrogen levels. Higher levels of estrogen are linked to cancer, okay. All right, now we're walking down the aisle of the grocery store and we're looking at some of these processed foods and we're wondering, okay, how bad is this for me? Or can I bring it home? What should I look for? You might recognize this box. It's a brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tart box, okay? And I want to retrain your eyes on where to go when we're looking at this nutrition facts label. First place your eyes should go is the serving size. And that's not because that's necessarily what you or your kiddo should consume. That's just because that's what the rest of the information on this box is based off of, okay? So as many of us know, Pop-Tarts are packaged in packages of 2. That package is not resealable. That's really confusing, okay? So you think that one serving would be 2 pastries, but it's not. So if you're gonna eat 2 pastries like I did every day before 4th grade, we need to double all of the information below. If that makes sense. Okay, so instead of 210 calories, it'd be 420, et cetera, et cetera. So serving size, keep your eyes there just to look at how much is one serving, and that'll let you know what the rest of the information is based off of, okay? We come on down to saturated fat. That's one of those things we demonized for a long time, and we realized we got that one wrong, okay? Saturated fat for 90% of the population is not a problem. If you struggle with high cholesterol, you might benefit from reducing your saturated fat, but it's not a direct link like we used to think. Okay, trans fats, those are the problem. And they actually became illegal in 2015, so you shouldn't have anything to worry about. They gave food companies 3 years to pull them out of their products, but just do a triple check. Okay, they are so bad for you, they did become illegal, so that's good news. The FDA is looking out for us there. We come on down to the sugars. So in one pastry, one Pop-Tart, there are 16 grams of added sugar. Remember, the World Health Organization recommends no more than 25 grams per day. The American Heart Association breaks it down for men and for women. They say max of 20 grams per day for women and 36 per day for men. You guys can go off of whichever number you want, but I do highly recommend starting to pay attention to how many grams of added sugar you're consuming. It's in everything. It's in barbecue sauce, it's in ketchup, it's in the tuna packets. Sugar's everywhere. It's infiltrating all of our products, not all of them, most of our products. Okay, so it adds up quickly. Again, if you were like me and every day before 4th grade, you're eating 2 Pop-Tarts, you're getting double your sugar there. So I was starting my day with 32 grams of sugar, more sugar than I should consume in the whole day. And then I was expected to sit in a seat and shut up and be quiet for 8 hours. And no wonder these teachers are having a hard time with these kids when they start their day off with a sugar bomb like that, right? All right, let's zoom in on the ingredients. As a reminder, ingredients are listed in order of abundance. Okay, so the most abundant ingredient in a Pop-Tart is enriched flour, and the second, fourth, and sixth most abundant ingredients in a Pop-Tart are different names for sugar: brown sugar, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup. And the reason they don't use all one type of sugar is because then it would become the most abundant ingredient in a Pop-Tart, and it would have to be listed first. Okay, so for all the mamas walking down the aisle, they pick up the Pop-Tart box, they look at the ingredients, they see enriched flour. Well, that doesn't seem too bad. In the cart it goes. What if they flipped over that box and the first ingredient was high fructose corn syrup? They might be a little less inclined to put that Pop-Tart box in the cart. So the food companies know that. So they pull a little bit from brown sugar, a little from corn syrup, and a little bit from high fructose corn syrup, and they hide it down in the ingredient list. So now that you're an informed consumer, you know these tricks and you know what to look for. One of the chemicals found in a Pop-Tart that's a preservative used to keep the Pop-Tarts good through the zombie apocalypse. We've got TBHQ as a form of butane. Okay, it's used to preserve the shelf life. The FDA knows that it's got negative side effects, so they only allow 0.02% of products to be comprised of TBHQ. All right, so if you're doing double Pop-Tarts, again, like I was, I'm getting double my dose of TBHQ. Nausea, delirium, vomiting, and asthma are all side effects of TBHQ. Asthma, we've got an asthma epidemic going on in our kiddos right now, and I truly attribute it back to the foods that we're feeding them. Keep on coming down, we've got caramel color. It's on California's list of potentially toxic chemicals. If you've got caramel color in your food in Europe, you've got to put a big warning label on the front. Contains a dye, could have potentially harmful side effects. There's 2 countries in Europe, I believe it's Norway and Sweden. You're not allowed to have any dye at all in your foods. They've outlawed all dye, which I'm very excited about. All right. So the main point of this slide being we need to read the ingredient list. Most of the foods that we talked about around the outside of the grocery store don't have an ingredient list. Yogurt and cheese being the biggest exceptions. So if you're buying like a meat that's pre-marinated, it'll have an ingredient list. If you're buying something like chicken sausage, it'll have an ingredient list. But otherwise, no ingredient list there. That's a pretty good check on whether or not it's a healthy food or not. If it doesn't have an ingredient list, it's probably a whole real food. Okay, but when we get to the aisles, we get a lot of ingredient lists, and we need to start paying attention. What am I bringing home for myself and my family to eat? The FDA, like I mentioned, they're not looking out for you. You have to look out for yourself and your family. So before a food item goes in your cart, I challenge you to look at that ingredient list. Try and read through them. If it has an ingredient list this long, that's typically a red flag that it should go back on the shelf. Okay. A few other things to look out for when you're reading that ingredient list. Artificial sweeteners. So aspartame, that's what makes diet soda sweet. That's pretty much the only place it's found these days. We really want to do our best to avoid that. Sucralose, that's that artificial sweetener that's found in a lot of diet and sugar-free products these days. It's in a lot of like workout products. So whether that's a pre-workout or a protein bar, it's in a lot of drinks like protein shakes or like the ice drinks, it's in there. If something says it's sugar-free but still tastes sweet, we need to go right to the ingredient list and we need to look for why is this sweet. You'll see that word sucralose, or hopefully you'll see stevia or monk fruit. Okay, saccharin is one that's a little bit less common. Let's see, I've got something in the Q&A. How do you feel about grapeseed oil? That's another one that's inflammatory that I would minimize. Okay. There are those processed oils. Soybean, canola, corn, peanut, partially hydrogenated oil, vegetable oil, all want to do our best to minimize. Okay, they're high in omega-6s, making them very inflammatory, especially when we don't get enough omega-3s, which is kind of how our society operates, unless you're doing a good job with lots of fish and lots of fish oil. All right, so in those processed foods, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find one of those oils, and we want to do our very best just to minimize our exposure there. And artificial colorings, again, if you have an artificial color, a dye in your food in Europe, you have to put a big warning label on the front. And then there's those 2 countries that have outlawed dyes altogether based on the negative side effects, the research that we're seeing coming out of these negative side effects. And think about what foods contain the most dye. It's the foods that are marketed towards our kids, and they're growing and developing little bodies do not need to be consuming these artificial colorings. There's links to ADD, ADHD, behavioral issues. Okay, so do your best to minimize, especially your kids and your grandkids' exposure to these artificial colorings. And then we've got preservatives. So we've got BHT, BHA. It's in a lot of cereal. So you'll find it as the last ingredient. All right, it's a preservative. Again, used to keep something good for a long time. MSG, monosodium glutamate. You'll see that in frozen foods. Sodium nitrate or nitrate, potassium bromate, high fructose corn syrup. There are countries around the world that have made every single one of those chemicals illegal. But again, the FDA very lax on what they allow in our food. Okay, so we need to familiarize ourselves with those words. And maybe, again, this is one of those slides that gets printed out and it goes to the grocery store with you until you get the hang of looking out for those words. here are some of the brands that I highly recommend that are becoming much more readily available. Okay, you can trust them. You know that they have good quality ingredients. You're not going to come upon any one of their products that has gone completely rogue and is full of sugar and full of dye or anything like that. Okay, so the Applegate version, they've got some really great products. They make chicken sausage, they make deli meat, they make burgers. Okay, good quality. They have high standards there. The Chomps brand, they have beef jerky, they have turkey jerky, and then they have a jalapeno beef jerky. High quality beef, no preservatives. The line of Primal Kitchen anything. So that would be Primal Kitchen salad dressing, Primal Kitchen mayonnaise, Primal Kitchen avocado oil. Their whole line of stuff is wonderful. They have pasta sauces as well. The Siete brand, this is one of those up and coming brands, really excited about it. They're doing a great job with their tortilla chips. They're making regular chips like a barbecue chip, a salt and vinegar chip, all made with avocado oil. All right, so very lower on the inflammatory totem pole. They make a great wrap, like a taco size and then a burrito size. They're in the freezer section. They make a hard taco shell as well and some taco seasonings. Simple Mills, I gotta give a shout out to this gal. I don't know her personally. She graduated a couple years ahead of me at Chapel Hill. She was an exercise and sports science major as well, and her brand has taken off. She has made a whole line of crackers. She's getting into the baked goods now, but if you're looking for a healthier alternative to a cracker or a Cheez-It, she's got options for those. And if you have a nut allergy in the family, she now has a seed cracker. These are no nuts at all. And then the Birch Benders brand, they make some really good pancake and waffle mixes. Few other trusted brands for you. I talk about Ezekiel bread. They are now making wraps and English muffins and cereal. So it's made with an ancient grain. There's no preservatives in there. The English muffins and the bread and the wraps need to go in the fridge or the freezer. Because there's no preservatives, they will grow mold like bread is supposed to. All right, so make sure when you bring it home, it goes in the fridge or the freezer. You can find it in the freezer section of the grocery store. That Purely Elizabeth brand, really high quality brand of granola and oatmeal, like pre-made oatmeal cups. They do a great job, low on the sugar totem pole, and then they're made with coconut oil, so none of those inflammatory oils. The RX protein bars and the RX cups, really great options. Dave's Killer bread, that would probably be second if I were to do a bread continuum, Ezekiel bread being the most healthy, Dave's Killer bread coming in a close second. Crazy Richards, this is a great brand of peanut butter. Okay? The only ingredients in there are going to be peanuts. And then the Kirkland's, that's like the Costco brand of almond butter. They do almonds and salt. So that's a really high quality brand of almond butter. When you're buying your nut butter, the only ingredient should be peanuts or peanuts and salt. Same thing with almond butter, almonds, or almonds and salt. All right. When it comes to drinks, here are some drinks to choose from. So we've got the GT's kombucha. Kombucha is full of probiotics. That's healthy bacteria for our gut. It's a carbonated black tea that's flavored. It's so good. You can buy those in the cooler of the produce section. Gatorade Fit. Okay, never in my life have I been endorsing Gatorade until they just came out with this product not long ago, maybe 2 years ago. And it's a Gatorade product with no dye and it's sweetened with stevia. Okay, so if you got little ones running around the soccer field and they like to drink Gatorade, switch to Gatorade Fit. Okay, so they're not getting dye and they're not getting the sugar or the fake sugar. Zevia, that's the whole brand of soda similar to Coke and Pepsi that they have. The cola, Dr. Zevia, Mountain Zevia, a Sprite version, a root beer version, all sweetened with stevia, and there's no dye in there. So it doesn't matter, maybe you buy the grape one, if you pour it into a clear glass, it's going to be clear. There's no dye. The Zevia Energy, they also make an energy drink. So if you're looking for a pick-me-up in the afternoon, this is a great one to look for. Great energy drink, very clean. Suja, this is cold-pressed juice. So I'm not endorsing Welch's grape juice or any of those. Those are very similar to a soda, the way that they break down in the body. They're just straight sugar. But the cold-pressed juice, which again you can find in the produce section right next to the kombucha, is a good quality option for real fruits and vegetables juiced. It's going to have the pulp in there and everything. Celsius, this is another high quality energy drink, and I'm not endorsing the regular ones because the regular ones have sucralose, but they do make a few flavors that are sweetened with stevia. So you want Celsius stevia. You can find them on Amazon. That's the only place I've found them so far. If you guys find them at your local grocery store, please let me know. And then bubbly or any other carbonated flavored water, fine. Just watch out for added sugar. Some of them have added sugar, but you just want the ones that are naturally flavored with no added sugar. Okay, I just did so much talking. I've got a couple questions in the Q&A. How do I feel about grapeseed? We talked about that. What are the top 2 or 3 protein powders? So my top 2 or 3 would be earth-fed muscle. You can order that on Amazon or right from their website. And there's 4 simple ingredients. It's a whey-based protein. If you don't tolerate dairy well, I highly recommend Sun Warrior. Again, you can order that on, actually you can buy it at Whole Foods, but you can order it on their website or on Amazon. And that's a plant-based protein powder with no soy in it. Those are my top 2. And then there's a beef-based one called Ancient Protein. It's the Dr. Axe version. That's a pretty good one as well. What other questions do we have? I just did a lot of talking, you guys. Thanks for bearing with me.
There's a couple here. I have one that says, if one's cholesterol and LDL are a little high, should one consume low-fat or full-fat dairy products?
That's a loaded question. So what I would say is that depending on what the rest of your numbers look like, then I would have a better answer for you. So if your triglycerides are low, your HDL, which is your good cholesterol, is in normal limits or on the high side, and your LDL is high, you have nothing to worry about. Eat that full fat diet. If you have high triglycerides, high LDL, and low HDL, that's a combination for disaster. Okay, that's when we need to start thinking about watching those saturated fats.
Excellent. The other one here was, it says, I love ranch dressing. Is there any healthier option that's out there?
Yes, great question. The Primal Kitchen line of salad dressings makes one of everything. They make a honey mustard, an Italian, a green goddess, a ranch. So that's what I would highly recommend. There's also some pretty good recipes for homemade ranch if you don't like that one. But that's the easiest way to do it. Just go ahead and buy it from Primal Kitchen. Anything else?
Here's another one, but I feel like you might have covered this one. Any healthier snacks to replace chips other than raw veggies?
Good question. Let me go back to, okay, so right here, the Siete brand, bottom left of your screen, they are making a very healthy line. Well, I don't want to say healthy line of chips as if when you eat them, you're eating the same thing as broccoli. Okay, that's not what I'm saying, but way better than if you were to eat a barbecue Lay's chip. Okay, so they make barbecue chips, they make like a salt and vinegar, they make a spicy one, they make something that resembles a Dorito, and then they make tortilla chips. And so that's a healthier alternative. Those Simple Mills almond flour crackers are a great alternative to something salty. And if you want to be super healthy, go for trail mix, like a assorted nuts, maybe with some raisins in there or some other bit of dried fruit. That's a great alternative for a healthier snack.
I have one question here from us. Are fruit smoothies good for you, or is there too much sugar?
Another great question. On Thursday, I'm working with a client in person and we're going to build smoothie bags that you can just keep in the freezer. And when you need a quick breakfast or a quick snack, you can just dump them in the blender and have a smoothie ready to go. And that's what we're going to be talking about, because there's a really healthy way to make a smoothie, or you could just make it a sugar bomb. So in your smoothie, if it's all fruit and it's like a couple bananas and maybe some almond milk and that's it, then that's a sugar bomb. Okay, so we want to balance out the carbs from the fruit with a healthy fat and protein. So ideally there's a protein powder in there, and if you need a good one, I can recommend one for you. And then also there's some healthy fat in there. So that might look like peanut butter or almond butter or coconut oil. Some people do avocado oil in there. There may be chia seeds or flax seeds, maybe some people like to do like a handful of spinach or kale. It doesn't change the taste of your smoothie. It makes it green, beware, but it's another way to get some fiber in there. So we don't want to go all fruit. You want a healthy protein and then some healthy fat. And if you can tolerate spinach or kale, that would be the perfect smoothie.
Okay, one more. Nut thins, any good? Question?
The Blue Diamond nut thins, those are okay. I'm not sure what the oil is in there, but I think those are pretty good. Much better alternative than like a Ritz cracker or a Club cracker. Yeah.
Perfect. Good. I think I'm good on this one for questions. Anything for Ken on your end that you're?
Yeah, that's all the ones I saw that came through, and Michelle did a great job doing the Q&A as they popped up. So, well, we want to thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for educating all of us. Our clients are trying to live their best life. We're trying to live our best life, and this is a big step in that right direction. So, I mean, just from reading labels, I feel like we're being tricked almost. It almost sounds like we're being tricked a little bit on what's out there. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront and how we can have healthier options when we're filling up our grocery cart. So some of those recipes you have on your website, the SweatNet website, are phenomenal. We made a couple of, like the pineapple barbecue chicken for dinner. We made that one. That is delicious.
Yes. Oh, that makes me so excited.
Yeah, that's a good one. So we want to thank you for all that you do for us, for the clients. I mean, this is really about our clients from Gentian Financial, the Adams Wealth Partners Group, the Freeze Financial Group. It's all about having this resource that you offer, Michelle, which is so helpful. So so clients, if you're listening to this, please tap into Michelle's knowledge. I mean, she's there for you. We have her there for you. And she's easy to talk to, and we'll give you a great solution. So just want to say thank you very much on behalf of all the firms. Michelle, thank you very much. Kathy, thank you. Everyone involved, just want to say thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Take care.